Welcome to Inside Out, Mental Health at Work and in Life, where we're exploring why our workplaces feel the way they do and what it takes to build cultures that support genuine well-being. I'm your host, Catherine Eady, and today I'm joined by Nicky McLaughlin. Welcome to the show. Before we get into the topic of mental health at work and in life, for people meeting you for the first time, could you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, certainly, Catherine. I'm Nicky McLaughlin. I'm the Area Partnership Manager for Scotland for CAP, Christians Against Poverty. We're a debt counselling charity. I've been doing this role with CAP for about 3 years, but also 2 days a week, I'm a debt centre manager, where we provide at-home visits to provide debt counselling for people in their own homes. It's a free charity. So, yeah, we go out to people's houses, and I've been doing that for 12 years. And I live in Motherwell, and I've got a border collie and a cat, and I've got 3 adult daughters. So that's me. Yeah,
That's great, excellent. Yeah, 12 years, that's a
12
good
years, a
kind
long
of
time. Yeah, it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah, good stint. And CAP have been around. How long have CAP been around for?
30 years. This
Wow.
year is the 30th anniversary. So later on in the year, they're having a gathering, they call it. It's in November for the actual
Yeah,
date. Yeah, it started off with a man, John Kirby, who had a financial background, and he started with one couple in Bradford. It started in Bradford, and
yeah,
he started with £10 in his pocket, and it grew from there.
yeah,
It really took off probably about 15,
yeah,
20 years ago. It really did
yeah,
rocket. So there's about 250 odd centres in
yeah.
the UK now. Yeah, so it's quite a big organisation now. Yeah,
Mm,
so 30 years we've been
amazing.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, more relevant, more important than ever, given kind of where we are with the cost of living.
Exactly.
Um, But thinking about, I mean, we're thinking about obviously you've kind of got the clients you support, but also we have to think about the staff supporting the clients you support,
Yeah.
and we have to think about the challenges even they face, even financially as well. We mustn't remember for our audience that a report not that long ago that said even middle income earners are
Mhm.
struggling. So if middle income earners are struggling just now, just imagine what people in the sectors that you and I have worked
Yeah.
in for charities, financially as well. So thinking about broadly though, when you think about a mentally healthier workplace, what does that actually look like in practice?
Right. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It does take a big toll on people, Catherine. My role is supporting the debt centre managers and debt coaches who go out on home visits. So what we've been finding over the years is, yeah, it's just the nature of people are under real pressure when they phone us. They've got issues with debt, which clearly causes a whole raft of problems, a whole lot of stress, poor mental health, just naturally falls for that. There's also underlying ones that have caused them potentially to be in that position as well, bereavements, things like neurodivergence as well, these kind of things. So we've noticed over the years that because there's a greater awareness of what people are going through, our staff are having that impact as well. So to make it a bit more, but it's to support them as much as possible, which is one of the reasons that I'm really quite keen to have as much knowledge and as many tools as possible to support them. So I think a healthy workplace really is to give people that space, a space to be vulnerable themselves, a space to be where they don't have to have all the answers, they don't have to have it all together, that they're allowed to be affected by things, they're allowed to be affected by things that happen in their own life, and nobody's going to judge them for it. So it's this kind of care that we're trying to promote for people. So some people, the care might just be, make sure you take your holidays and make sure that you can separate out your boundaries. So part of my role is just guiding people with that. But courses like the ones we're on, the mental health first aid course, are absolutely vital for people to provide some self-care as well, and for us to provide that care for them, that really that they're not alone on this, and there's support there. So the healthiness, I think, or a healthy workplace actually does come out with an awareness of everybody, all the staff in the office know exactly how to approach things. We know
Mm,
where the help is, when we know how to access it, and we're not afraid to access it, which I think is a really good thing. I've worked in places before where there's been an awareness of it,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't necessarily put into practice. And I think that was simply because it's maybe seen as a lack of understanding, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
managers didn't understand how to go about it. Are we going to say the wrong thing? Are we going to do the wrong thing? Or this situation comes up and just go, this is way beyond our pay grade. This is just too overwhelming. We can't deal with it. But that's got a
Mm-hmm.
knock-on effect on the staff.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. And I think certainly if we're thinking about the third sector, charities, is the vulnerabilities with burnout in them. I would say is a little bit more, it's a little bit, I would say it's higher because the very nature that you're putting everything into your clients, supporting them, you're taking on a lot of their emotions, a lot of their
Yeah.
difficulties. You're absorbing. Your staff tend to
Hmm.
absorb that a lot more in charities that are doing this kind of work. And so yeah, it can sit with staff longer. And I think also, do you find, I mean, I certainly find and have found working in the sector for a long time that the sector itself attracts people who have had their own difficulties,
Yes,
you know?
yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, and that's one of the things I think, well, I'm a West of Scotland guy of a certain age, right? So you tend not to do that, but it tend not to talk about it. But there is that thing that you're kind of letting the side down. And there's also that people, they're motivated to do it. It's like, they're more, somebody's had an experience, say, somebody having cancer in their family, they're very aware, they see this everywhere then, and they're aware how to help. So it's the same with mental health issues. And I think that it's that there's been a cultural change that people are now a bit more willing to talk about it. But yes, it definitely, I think it's that empathy people have. It's why they're in the job in the first place. But I think they need to be careful is that they're not anybody's savior. They're not anybody's answer to everything. We're just there to actually go, right, there's ways to deal with this. You're not
Yeah,
on your own. And at
yeah,
CAP, what we try to do, that's one of the big things that we do is like, we've got strap lines every so often. And one of them for years was always hope. And it was bringing hope to people. So it was that hope, trying to bring that, to communicate that across. But our staff need to know that that applies to them as well. That's the
yeah,
difference, So
yeah,
yeah, it has been one of these things. Yeah, people they feel as if they need to give all the time, and I think
yeah.
they need to be very, very careful that they're not giving too much or giving beyond what their actual ability to give us. But the help is there. So what we try and do in our office is we do have regular catch ups with each other. We just what's going on in your life. We actually structured it in for a long time. It was structured in with a meeting time every Thursday, just to what's happening in your life.
Hmm.
And that was good. So it's what's happening in your work life, but what was really good was what's happening in the personal life. Work life can be, even though there's a lot of challenging situations we're in, the personal life is a bit more because you're making yourself a bit vulnerable there.
Hmm.
But I think the trick to it was that I personally saw it as my responsibility then to say, look, I've had issues in my life. I've had issues with anxiety and bereavement and what have you, and trauma in the past as well. So it's even though it was quite hard at times for me to actually share that,
Mm.
it was a good thing. I knew it was the right thing to do because I didn't need to elaborate any more than I had to. And this is what I
Hmm.
found doing the courses really helped me with. It really, really helped me actually just formulate my feelings and my thoughts so as I could explain it to people. But it's
Hmm.
creating that culture where, yeah, it's all right to share. Well, there's somebody sharing there, they're telling about it.
Hmm.
So that naturally in a conversation, they're going to connect with that,
Hmm.
their own
Yeah,
kind of experience.
it's,
Yeah.
it's a very good point that, and I think we come across it a lot with the sharing part where there needs to be kind of the right environment in which people feel safe to share.
Uh-huh.
And I think sometimes sharing can be seen a little bit black and white. I need to tell all or tell nothing.
Yeah.
There's that whole grey bit in the middle where you can just tell as much as you feel comfortable. But also, I think we need to get more used to saying that you're struggling and the other person on the other side, not probing too much so that the person makes the person, doesn't make the person feel uncomfortable. So
Yeah,
it's, yeah, I think we can get round some of this where people going, because again, I've had many conversations historically where people have said, the workplace is not the right place to chat about what's going on in your personal life. But it's not as black and white as that. It's
that's
much more
right.
muddied than that, much more
Yeah,
muddied.
you're exactly right, Catherine, because that actually, about 25 years ago, probably longer than that, I worked for a social work department. I had to give my job up because of stress and anxiety.
Mm.
And it was quite ironic because they were wanting me, by the time there was obviously a problem, I just walked into work and just can't do this anymore, right? Just couldn't handle it. And they were wanting me, they were really good. They provided outside counsellors and what have you. And it was like, I felt there was that division that the workplace is not the way me talk about stuff that's going on in my personal life. My marriage was a bit of a mess. My finances, where this is the reason I'm in this job, was I've been through that. So back then that was getting to me as well. There was other stresses going on. There was a bereavement, and I felt that wasn't really the place to do it. And
Yeah,
sometimes I do catch myself still doing that. I said, well, I'm a person. I'm a whole person. I'm not the guy who works with cap 8 hours a day and then the rest of the time it's a completely different personality. And they put them into categories and never the twain shall meet. So yeah, I have been doing it. It can be quite hard though, because some things obviously hurt you more and make you
yeah,
feel more vulnerable than others. Uh, because of the situation with a family member at the start of the year, probably around about February, and I found it quite hard, even though it wasn't that a traumatic thing. I found it quite hard to share that. But round about the same time, there was where I live in Motherwell, there was a tower and a guy jumped out. There was a fire in the tower. He set it himself and he jumped out 12 stories. And me and my daughter saw that when we were out with the dog. So
yeah,
I found that very easy to actually deal with. But I think there was one step removed. So
yeah,
it's getting that thing.
mm,
Yeah, it could have potentially affected my work, but
yeah,
because it was a major shock, as you can imagine. But there is that thing. Yeah, it's putting things into categories. You're just a whole person, but it's that whole thing that some people think you
mm-hmm.
shouldn't be bringing this into the workplace. And I think just getting the balance right. What you're saying
Mm,
there, you don't, it isn't a case of all or nothing. You can tell what you need to tell.
yeah,
Right. So I found it quite useful myself to actually have a wee couple of rehearsed phrases. I wasn't going to say everything's fine because everything wasn't fine, right? I
yeah,
was I was shook up with both of these situations for different reasons. But I had in my head a wee kind of script and I went, right, this I can say and I won't start to feel, oh, I went too far. And this is what I won't say
yeah,
unless I think I need help with it
yeah.
or somebody notices and maybe wants to find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for anyone listening who supports others with someone sharing is just to be mindful that you yourself don't need the ins and outs, the details to be able to
Yeah,
support someone else. And to acknowledge what they've shared, and what can we do to support that person rather than,
uh-huh.
okay, can you tell me about this, tell me about that, tell me about the next thing? Because you're much more likely to close people down, particularly in a workplace context, by doing that. So there's a kind of, yeah, I think sometimes when we're unsure of what the response is going to be like, and people ask maybe too many questions or probe a
Yeah.
bit too more, we then go, oh, well, I'm not going to do that again. So there is a fine balance. I mean, moving on to kind of, I don't know your relationships with many other organizations or what you see from friends and family who work for other organizations, but where do you see organizations getting stuck right now? I mean, it sounds like CAP's come a long way in what you're doing at CAP.
Yeah.
Are
Uh-huh.
you noticing other things in other organizations where they're getting stuck in particular?
I think, yeah, I can actually, some of the organisations that I'm seeing, they're very good, right? I've noticed the local MSP's office are quite good on these kind of things, but I know they've been through similar training, they go through assist training and what have you. But there is a situation, yeah, in my own family, there's a family member whose employer isn't handling a situation very well. There's been their spouse attempted suicide a number of weeks back, but it's been an ongoing situation, and I think the organisation have got stuck. I didn't really want to go into the whole details of it, but it was actually a case of that I think there was underlying issues that weren't resolved, and then the workplace ones started really impacting this person's mental health, because there was an underlying lack of clarity in how it was being dealt with, and a bit of indecisiveness. And it left this person completely feeling as if they'd just been abandoned by their employers. And it was like, wow. So I think that people can get stuck, I think, if managers in particular aren't clear, people, or even people with kind of responsibility for other staff, that they aren't clear what they're wanting to achieve with these things, and also don't factor it in. If they don't factor in that, for example, a disciplinary hearing could have an impact on somebody's mental health, if they just completely disregard that, that can blow up in their face, really. So I think that I think there's a bigger awareness of it now, all around. I think people are the organisations that I'm in contact with, my job, that they tend to be they do tend to be quite aware of what's going on now in a way they weren't, say, even 10 years ago. But I think the getting stuck part is when they don't have that awareness. It's just, again, I'm saying it's a whole person. It's not just one area of their life. So I think if they get stuck, it maybe could be as simple as, we don't expect somebody to bring a marriage problem into the workplace, but that could have a big impact on it.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
or
you
a
touched
debt
on,
problem.
you touched on clarity of communication. That has come up quite a lot around communication, clear communication, but also communication. I'm just kind of thinking of communication where an employer feels fearful of mentioning something because they're not just not sure what the other person's going to say in response, or fear of making things worse comes up for employers. And I think there's something to be said for employers feeling comfortable enough and managers feeling comfortable enough to say, I'm not exactly sure what to do in this situation. However, let's work this out together. And I think that the basis of organizations getting unstuck is in the conversations. Have more of them. Be more open to saying, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure, but let's find out, and not having the perfect answers to everything, I think, as well.
That I think you're probably right on that one, actually. That would definitely be, I would see it. There is, what I think from my own personal experience, is managing teams, and you do kind of subconsciously, it's maybe just me, but you can subconsciously set yourself up as you are the go-to person. Things a problem. So if you don't have the answer to something, that is very scary, right? It kind of undermines your own confidence in yourself and in your role. So maybe that's the reason why people don't actually, it's the communicate. But it's one of these, it's that old phrase, information's power. What, how to signpost people on, or where to go. Well, I can't do it. There was an old TV advert, I know a man who can. It's that kind of thing, right? It is definitely a case of that awareness of who you need to signpost on. In the debt centres, that we try and tell our debt centre managers and our debt coaches that they don't need to be the fountain of all knowledge. But give them as much training as they want, and an awareness of mental health issues. But the stuff is, I mean, there is no way in a million years they'd ever need to be at the level of some of the things they're dealing with, people with psychosis, people with real complex needs. There is no way, they're not there for that job, but they need to know if somebody's presenting with certain behaviours, and it's clear where it's got, where to signpost them on. So we've all got a big list of local areas to try and encourage it. Everybody's got a list. These are our go-to people, and they go-to people hopefully have got go-to people as well. So this is the kind of networking part of it works really well.
Well, asking for help, that's it. I mean, it's invaluable. Every day I think of something I don't know about and think I'm away off to ask someone else about it. It's just, don't be afraid to seek support and ask for support, and then that gets you unstuck.
Yes, that's it, exactly. Yes.
What ways can you get yourself unstuck? That's it.
Yeah, I've done that myself actually. It's just one of these things. It's just, I don't know where it's a kind of professional pride. You just want to go, right, I should know the answer to that. I should be able to figure this out. And sometimes you just go, I don't know.
No.
Right. And it's not putting your hand up and going, no, it's like being at school again. Please, miss, I don't know what I'm doing. Right. It's
Mm.
it's that yeah, that help definitely helps getting unstuck. It's the being able to
Yeah,
ask for help.
yeah,
Again, you're
yeah,
down to people's motivations for not asking for help, their own personal backgrounds and what have you,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I totally get that, but it's amazing how liberating it can be to help organizations and people within them get unstuck, to just think a
Hmm.
little bit wider about around the people around them. And you're right. We, particularly in the kind of very complexities of where we are now, is you can't know everything. You're not, it's not even
Oh
an
no, it's no chance.
expectation to be able
No.
to know everything, so many managers, go and seek, go and contact their HR departments for legal, context and all sorts of things. So we need people to help themselves get unstuck by
Yeah.
reaching out to others and saying, what did you do in that situation? Because we're stuck here.
Hmm.
And can you help us out? And I think it's actually should be seen as very much an empowering and positive thing to be doing,
Hmm.
to help you kind of get unstuck. So moving kind of similar to this kind of stuck question, but this is more about blind spots. I mean, again, managers, team leads, even people higher up seniority. What pressures and blind spots do you wish leaders did pay more attention to?
I think it's probably maybe follow on if they identify there's maybe something going on with somebody
Hmm.
and they- whatever they have a chat or whatever and they think it's so the lack of a follow-up. I think it's like we've done it
Yeah.
once, yeah, we've listened to somebody, went through what we think is right, and then the person doesn't really, they don't show any upset or anything 2 or 3 months later, but the same situations could be carrying on or they could be recurring. So I think that's a kind of blind spot that it's not the I care I care for someone. It's not just a one-off. It could be a
Yeah.
bit more. I think the blind spot, another one as well, is it's just assuming somebody else. There's an expert in the office can do this, in inverted
Mm.
commas. There's someone who's been through the training,
Mhm.
and I think that can be dangerous. That well, maybe not dangerous, but it could be. It's definitely not. It could really be to people's disadvantage if they do that. If you just assume, well, there's people who've been through suicide intervention training or whatever, right? So they're going to be the person to talk to, right? So
Mhm.
rather than broaden that out, or yeah,
Mhm.
so I think that's one of yeah
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting one on that one in particular about kind of education skills and putting staff through training and all the rest of it. There's a confidence afterwards
Yeah,
to that.
yeah,
That doesn't mean to say that once they've done that, they're absolutely swimming with it. They're
uh-huh,
flying and they're able, they need to build up confidence. They need to practice those
yeah,
skills
mm-hmm,
over a period of time. So yeah, I think that can happen. You're right. And it's not assuming it's kind of done and dusted and yeah, they're the go-to person. Yeah.
yeah, mm-hmm.
Um Now, kind of, and your own experience here, kind of, how has your own experience shaped the way that you think about mental health at work? You've touched on parts of this already, particularly when you were talking about social work and the impact that
Uh-huh.
had on mental health and well-being. And there are extraordinary amount of pressures for people in the workplace, and many of us are thinking about how mental health at work, what it means to us at
Mm-hmm.
work. So, has over the years, has it changed how you think about mental health at work?
Definitely, it definitely has. I think when I worked with social work department, I was in my 30s, so my life experience was different from what it is
Yeah.
now, obviously, because there've been X amount of years. I'm not going to say how many since, but it's that I think as you go through it, you build up an empathy with people if your life circumstances change. That's what I've noticed. There was also, I was a wee bit more, the training was really good when I worked, it was North Lanarkshire Council, I worked with social work department, and the training was really good regarding boundaries. It was absolutely brilliant.
Mm.
It still serves me well. It gives me a good protection about, so I'm protecting my own personal life from certain things, and I'm not getting completely overwhelmed. So I've got the tools to do that. I think one of the things though, it's going on these kind of courses actually helped me understand things that went on in my own past. When I was a teenager, I saw a lot of things that I thought were just normal, right? Well, not so much normal, but I used to go to football games. I saw somebody getting slashed. There was stabbings and stuff like that round about, and it was just this idea of like, yeah, this is just it happens, and you just go on with it. And it wasn't until much later on you got, all right, this isn't actually that had an impact on me. It really did, but I didn't realise it at the time. I was putting it all in other ways. There were deaths in the families when I was young as well. Yeah, there was quite a lot, and that really at the time it was like just go numb, ignore it, but it was coming out in different ways, and it wasn't until many years later it started to really kind of the impact that had had. That it was starting. There was like this one of my colleagues died, and that's when it really hit home. I had to take time off work, and I would never have done that before. I was just like, right, I'm taking time out because I can't cope with this. And I was aware it was like a bottle filling up. I was actually aware of this. Here's another task, here's another one, and another one. And I'm either leaving this job tomorrow morning or something needs to change. So yeah, it was my own awareness of that from when you speak. Yeah, it's what was really good was I learned that it was okay to say I wasn't okay at work. That was, I think, my own personal experience there. I think it maybe because I was older, people weren't going to dismiss me so lightly, I suppose, because I wasn't a teenager anymore then. So yes, there was a lot of things like that. Yeah.
That's really interesting that thinking about because I was thinking about myself and your younger self doesn't quite have the same, I don't know, the same level of not bravado, but the same level of confidence to be able to say in the workplace those types of things. Whereas when you're
Uh-huh.
older, you just don't put up with that kind of thing in the same
No,
way,
you
I don't
don't.
think.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So it's amazing how experiences over time can shape the way how you deal with mental health at work for
Yeah,
yourself
that's
and for others actually as well. It's helpful
uh-huh.
for others because I think you're less dismissive as you're older, knowing that other people are going through or have gone through lots of different things throughout their
Hmm.
lives, as many of us have. I mean, bereavement itself is something everyone will go through.
That's right. Yeah.
And I do know, CIPD, for instance, have guidance on, dealing with bereavement at work. And also, I think they have a guide on a colleague. You just touched on a
Hmm.
colleague. They actually have a guide on colleagues when you're
Uh-huh.
bereaved by a colleague, because that again mustn't forget the impact that that does have on
Yeah.
those in your workforce. So, and there's so much going on. There's people with caring responsibilities. You touch on financial for your clients, but financial for your workforce.
That's right. Yes.
It's
Uh-huh.
similar.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think it's about being human at work, isn't it? We're a human at work with lots of
Yes. Yes. That's it. Yeah.
stuff,
Uh-huh.
So yeah. Um, if you could, I mean, this is always a funny question, but I always say to people with this question, think about it that this can have a knock-on effect on other things.
Hmm.
But at the moment, if you could change one thing that would help improve people's daily working lives, that can have a knock-on effect on others, what would it
Uh-huh.
be at the moment? Because things are changing all the time, but cost of living is a big one.
Hmm. I think for people in our office, I think actually just we do have a lot of flexibility, but probably flexibility in your hours. I think that would be
Oh,
the one thing. I mean, my youngest daughter's now 30 years old, so I don't have that, but I used to have that mad rush every morning, and then the same at 3 o'clock in reverse, and everything had to be worked round about it. But I've noticed that some of my colleagues, just, things really do you can see the stress level starting to rise up immediately when it comes certain days of the week or the school holidays
yeah.
uh, are on, and are like, all right, we need to go X-ray. So I think it's actually, yeah, that flexibility in time. I think that's probably
Mhm.
to say that it's all right for people, especially with people with young kids
Yeah,
under
yeah.
schoolies that they've got time. Yeah.
Mhm. I think that's a really good one because that has a knock-on effect on a lot of other things
Hmm.
that it can help with. But I think the other thing I've been much more aware of, and I don't know if you have as well, I mean, just recently, just thinking about the down in England when they had the temperatures really high, some of the
Uh-huh.
schools had closed. That is something you can't any parent or somebody working can't plan for that school
That's right.
closure.
Uh-huh.
That just happens. Here in Scotland during the teachers striking, the kids were off school. And I remember a lot of parents just going, "Oh my goodness, how am I going to possibly still be able to go to work?" And now I've got the school strikes going on.
Hmm.
So I think we have to be much more prepared for much more dynamic changes in people's working lives. And
Yeah,
because
that's
of
right. Yeah.
those
Hmm.
changes, yeah, and sometimes with very little notice, therefore flexibility has to looks very different for different people, but it needs to be quite immediately responsive as well, rather
Yeah,
than
that's
unplanned
yeah.
flexibility.
Yes, yeah, I think that's what I was getting at actually, because there's some of my colleagues. I mean, I live fairly close to my office. It's 15 minutes, 20 minutes away. So flexibility for me is probably coming in 20 minutes early, a quarter hour early or later. For some of the other ones, it's a major operation. For that
Yes.
very reason, we're talking about the schools have been in strike or something has went wrong. There's an accident in the motorway or the trains are
Yeah.
off or something,
Yeah.
and it's the logistics of that for them means they're not getting there for
Yeah.
9:15, they're getting there 10:15 or something. So it's
Yeah.
that kind of, yeah, you're right, that dynamic flexibility is the thing that's needed, rather, because I think most places now do have some kind of, well, CAP especially, they definitely have, right across the board, that's hybrid working. You can go in the
Yeah.
office. I mean, yeah, it's really up to yourself a lot of the time,
Mhm.
what suits, but it's that dynamic one, things that just come and just throw you straight out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's those curveballs we were talking about at the very
Yeah,
beginning
yeah,
when you're
that's
planning your
right.
work and you've got these curveballs. It's no different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It's just, yeah,
All
it's
those other
given it,
curveballs.
I think it's having that, I've been recognizing that people, it'll have an effect on them. It will have
Yes.
an effect, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll have
I
an
think
effect
when
on
you're
their mental health. Sorry, it'll
yeah.
have affect their
No,
mental
I was
health
going
as
to,
well.
yeah.
Arguing in front of your other half, you should be doing this, you should be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of thinking of supporting others as well, appointments and things like that. If a
Hmm.
9:30 appointment's not made, it's amazing how stressful on the staff member that can feel when it was a train delay and they didn't manage to speak to
Yeah.
someone or visit someone at 9:30 and it's got to be changed. And it's all those emotions and stress that comes with that.
Huh.
And it's about just giving people a break, isn't it? And just saying, don't, it happened, don't worry about it.
Uh-huh.
Life's not perfect. And we can move that appointment to a later date. Yeah. So flexibility. Thinking about people who hold influence, what does using it well look like?
Oh, that's a good question. Using it well. Well, I think it is actually just recognizing that the influence they've got, you're not standalone. It's not a kind of top-down thing that, yeah, that's it's just you. It has the influence that what you or anybody says as a manager or a line manager says, it's got an impact on the other end. It's not just an influence on its own, one-way
Mm,
influence. It comes the other way as well. Because I think that people do actually need to have that. They need to be responsive to what the staff are saying. They need to be aware of and aware of what they're not saying really, and being
hmm
able to help out that way rather than just, well, here we are. I've got the influence here. But having said that, yeah, I think that to use it well, I think it's just have an atmosphere of caring. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, we're on your side. That's the thing I try to think, that how can I help that person? How can I help our deck coaches, our centre managers? How can I do that? So a lot of ways it's be practical things. It's like
Mm,
um just giving them a run over what they're already planning to do. I got one of them this morning, they're looking at things, I just have a look at it and go, right, that makes sense. So it's giving them that influence of, well, here's a better way or another way of doing things. So there is that. Yeah, use what
yeah.
you've got to help them. Yeah, so use
Yeah.
the skills you've got to help that person and let them
Yeah.
give them the freedom to do the same themselves.
Yeah, helping with perspective. Yeah, absolutely. I
Aye.
mean, there's a lot that yeah, used in that space, and a big part of it is having other people's backs, and
Uh-huh.
saying I've got your back, and I'm here to support you, and I'm here to guide you even, and
Mm-hmm.
some managers kind of have done coaching and mentoring, and yeah, it's using those skills as well, really well,
And
to be able
yeah,
to
that's
do
right. And
that.
just having a catch up with people, just how you doing. If they're in the
Yeah.
same office, that's an easier thing to do
Mm, mhm,
because you can actually show people by example. Well, I'm taking time out to. Well, I'm feeling a bit down. You feel how you feeling today? You okay? Over a cup of tea or something? Just go in the kitchen with a cup of tea, so you can actually do that. That influence there.
mm,
Say it's okay to stop the train here. Things are going
yeah,
out. We can stop for 5 minutes at this station, have a cup of, before we move on. So it's those kind of things. Use, I suppose, your influence as a line manager or a manager. You get time. You're basically organising time and organising people and tasks. So it's to make the show that the tasks and the organisation they're there to serve people, not the
yeah,
other way about. I think
yeah,
that's probably
yeah.
a good way of doing it as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good kind of description of that. Yeah, you're there kind of to help and make things, easier
Uh-huh.
for people,
Yeah.
definitely. So, kind of finishing up, what still gives you hope right now?
Quite a lot of things, actually. Honestly, yeah,
That's good.
yes. I think that probably the thing that gives me hope is because of my debt centre role as well. I could see that people can change. I've seen that in my own life. It's what someone's situation right now is not the final chapter of their story by and large, or it doesn't have to be. So that gives me hope because I've seen change in people's lives. I've seen them recognise what's going on round about them, figure out ways to kind of deal with things, maybe, or get the help they're needing. I've done that in my own life as well. It gives me a bit of hope that, I mean, I've had, saying 20 odd years ago, on and off, there's been things happening in my life, and it hasn't been the final chapter on mine either.
Hmm.
So that always gives me hope that it's not, nothing is written in stone, really. Uh, or it doesn't have to be written in stone. So that's the kind of thing that gives me hope.
Yeah,
What gives me hope as well is in my own organisation, and I know there's other ones like it, that there's a much greater awareness of mental health issues, much greater. My daughters struggle a wee bit with that at times as well. And when they were younger, I worked with the social work department at the time, and their mum does it, she still does. It was like, how do we deal with this, right? These things, where's the help? And now it's much clearer how people can get help with this. It's much clearer than it used to be. It's still not ideal.
hmm,
People do,
hmm,
they still have a lot of barriers to get through, but the barriers are lower than they used to be for things, for example, ADHD and autism, where I
yeah,
know there was a lot of kids just written off. They were just
yeah,
like, this is as far as we can help. And then it didn't really go much further. And now there is support there. I feel quite hopeful that the people can now get access to this support that they really would have struggled to get before. Because it was like,
yeah,
here's phone that number, here's a leaflet. You say that to somebody with ADHD, they're never picking up that phone because
yeah,
they'll forget the leaflet exists 10 minutes
yeah.
later.
Hmm. Well, that's
Uh,
the thing. I mean, there are certainly more services than ever in the third sector. I mean, obviously the
uh-huh.
NHS is the NHS and they are struggling. But
Yeah.
I think in terms of the voluntary kind of third sector, yeah, there are so many more services. Yes, they often are still, struggling for funding and what have you, but they're
Hmm.
there, they're running, they're
Yeah.
there. They're good to just even pick up the phone and find out if they can support you.
Hmm.
Might not be immediate again, because the
That's
books
right.
might be, again, we're
Uh-huh.
thinking about kind of the sheer numbers of people actually
Yeah.
needing support right now is quite problematic. But that's not to say that you don't start that conversation and pick up the phone or send an email, because again, not everybody likes phone calls. Send a message, send an email, or get someone to help you contact a
Hmm.
service if that's what you need as well. And it's just getting that ball rolling, I think, that can
Yeah.
instill hope, you
That's
know?
right. I think the very fact that you talk to somebody about this gives them hope. that
Yeah.
isn't the be all and end all here. And that is really good. I like that. I give that hope. Yeah, there's something we can start something here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Because
the one of
it's
the things that
just,
doesn't give me hope is it kind of dampens it down a bit is the lack of access, not the delay in accessing the
yeah.
services. So
Yeah.
you just we need to work round about that in a bit.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
stick with people as best we can.
I
Even though
think that's it.
we're not
Yeah.
taking them onto the stage it should be. Getting the
Yeah.
help it should be, but just that somebody does care
Mm.
about them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think it is starting the journey, not necessarily the end points necessarily that speedy or that
Yeah.
quick, but we kind of very aware of, again, that comes down to education and knowledge, is we're very aware that there are struggles with that and
Hmm.
timelines that maybe are not ideal. But nevertheless, that doesn't stop us continuing these conversations with
Yeah.
people, helping them while they're waiting,
That's right.
and keeping that communication going with people they have contacted who they may not have heard back from when
Yeah.
they say they would. That often
Uh-huh.
happens as well. So it's helping people to navigate places that can, because the other person then feels they've still got something to work towards.
Hmm.
So
That's right.
that kind
Yeah.
of hope
Uh-huh.
part as well. Yeah. Well, that's been great, Nikki. It's been a great chat with you. Find out kind of your kind of thoughts on this topic. That's given us plenty to kind of sit with and think about. To everyone listening, I hope that's been helpful. Look after yourselves, and we'll see you next time on Inside Out.